Peace everyone, Unmask here and welcome back to the self-portrait live stream. Today I'm just going to be continuing on the background. We're doing a lot of work on the background. I don't think I'll be able to finish it today, the background anyway, but I think I might be able to get pretty close. So I'm just going to go ahead and start layering. I hope everybody has had a lovely Sunday or has a lovely Sunday, depending on what part of the world you're in. For me, today was really great. I woke up, played video games all day long. It was a glorious, glorious day of just being an absolute bum. And, the last couple days, the weather has been, it's been fairly nice. The wind has been like chilly the past like week, but at least the sun was out and you could usually go outside and take a nice walk with just wearing a hoodie or whatever. But today was just not having it. It was the kind of day to just stay in and play video games, and that's exactly what I did. And it was fantastic. I am so thoroughly obsessed with Path of Exile. It's just ridiculous. Hello, Debbie, Sandri, Catrice, Loria, Barbara, Sue, Sally, Tessa. Thank you so much for coming by and hanging out. I hope that you guys had a fantastic day, and I hope you had a great weekend thus far. Could I draw you while riding a shark through space? That's funny. The blender that I'll be using, I'm still using the solvent that I'm using. Yeah, I'm still using the Zest-It solvent. Oh, hey there, Bonnie. Good to see ya. At this stage of the background, I'm on the burnishing. I'm on the burnishing stage, so I'll be laying down the pencil a bit more concentrated and deliberately. So I'll be really covering the paper up today. That's going to be the goal, to get the paper completely covered up, have no paper showing through whatsoever. And essentially, I'm going to only be using two colors. So far I've used like all of my background colors to get the kind of color layout. But there's two kind of fundamental colors that make up the background, and I'm going to actually use those colors to burnish. So it's not going to cover up all of the colors that I've applied thus far, but then after I burnish it, I will use my brighter colors to start toning the background to get the right saturation levels of each color. And that will also help me get the subtle kind of texture, not really texture, but kind of like visual look that I've created so far. It's a bit spotty, like watercolor. So that's what I'm doing. Oh, hey there, Virginia. Helen. Oh, I'm glad you made it on time, Debbie. Hopefully you didn't have to rush eating your lunch. Speaking of eating, today is day 5 of 100% whole food vegan for the month of May. No oil, no sugar, no processed food, no flour, and it's going really well. Every day it feels like it just gets easier and easier, and I miss other foods less and less each day. It's been more of a discipline to like put a variety of foods together, And today I made refried beans, and the way that I make my refried beans is I use black beans and kidney beans, and so I boil those, and while those are boiling, I water fry onion and garlic, and I cook the onion and garlic thoroughly, and then after the beans have started to boil, or finish boiling, I guess, and they're really soft, I use a potato masher to just mash them up. I strain a bit of the water, not 100% of it, depending on how much of the water you strain. Depends on how thick your refried beans come out as. And so I just leave a little bit of water, and I mash them, and then I put them in the frying pan with the onions and garlic, and I just mix it all together with some salt and pepper, and I think I put a little chili powder in there also, and just fry them up for a couple minutes, and serve them with rice, and they were really good. I usually would have made my refried beans with like oil and stuff, and to be honest, I didn't miss it. Like I didn't miss the taste of the fat that they would normally be fried with, and it's like each day I realize that using the oil in the pan to cook, even though I've only ever used like a little bit of oil, I never used a lot or anything, I find it to be unnecessary. Why am I burnishing it when I already used solvent? Well, the plan was always to burnish it, but when I blend with solvent, it allows me to like stretch out the pigment across the paper, so that the burnishing stage comes a lot easier, because I don't really want the background to be like this color, just solid color. And so by applying all of my colors and kind of arranging my color scheme the way that I want it to look, I can just come over it with this last color to cover up the imperfections that you tend to get with the solvent blending method. Since you know, in some spots you might wipe away too much pigment. You probably can't tell on the camera, but right here and right here, the solvent kind of moved a bit too much of the colored pencil pigment. And so I just really want to get my background nice and dark, or not necessarily dark, but nice and covered. Like I don't want any paper showing through. And burnishing is really just a stage of layering, as I've explained before in a lot of my tutorials, and it's just a natural evolution of layering. It's not like you can kind of skip the layering process and go straight to burnishing, where you focus on like one spot and you apply like a medium heavy pressure to your pencil to just like burnish right away. But I don't like that. I don't like doing that, and I don't recommend it, because when you use a medium to heavy pressure in order to kind of skip the layering stage and go straight to burnishing, you tend to indent your paper with the tip of your pencil, and you can't really fix that. You can't really apply colors over top of it because it's been indented. And if you instead take your time really slowly with your layers, and you never go past a medium pressure so that you're never indenting your paper, you can always glaze colors over top of your colored pencil with other colors. And if I get to that stage today, I'll show you what I mean. But I'll still blend this with solvent. I'll still smooth this layer out with solvent. So it won't be like I do this and I never use solvent again in the background. What is burnishing? So hopefully I kind of described it to you. Burnishing is just a state of the paper where you applied so much colored pencil that the paper is completely covered. There's nothing but a smooth, waxy layer of the colored pencil. See, right now on this part, you can still see the white of the paper showing through, and that's because there's gaps between where the pigment of the pencil is covering the paper and not covering the paper. But if you look down here and where I've been coloring this entire time, this is just this solid color of pencil plus the combination of a few of the other colors still showing through. But down here, none of the paper is showing through anymore. Here's a better example. Like over here, you can see that the paper is showing through a lot. And once I burnish that side, you'll notice how much darker, how much solid the color is. And that's what I want for my background. I want a nice, smooth, solid cover. I don't want white paper showing through. But I've taken my time up to this point. I've only a few hours into the drawing, and I've just slowly but surely and gradually filled up the tooth of the paper, even though the tooth of this paper is very, very smooth, in order to get full coverage without applying a lot of pressure. Because my hand has never hurt. Filling up this entire background, my hand has never gotten tired. It's never hurt or anything like that. It's because I just keep a light medium pressure, just enough for the pencil to show up, and continuously apply my layer until the paper is covered. Why have you chosen to do the background in pencil and not use something quicker like pastels? Well, first off, pastels wouldn't stick to this paper, so that's one reason I wouldn't use pastels. The other reason is I don't like to mix pastels and colored pencils. Pastels is a very dry, soft, delicate medium, and I love the way pastels look when they've kind of settled into the paper. They almost have like this velvety finish to them, and I really like that consistency and texture. And colored pencils has pretty much the complete opposite. It's kind of got this sticky, waxy look to it, with a bit of shine. If you get the light right, you get this kind of glistening reflection of light, which it doesn't bother me, but it's a completely different texture. And for me, it's just a personal thing, but I hate mixing those two textures together. To me, I just can't stand looking at it. And so I don't mix those two mediums. I know it's perfectly common and a lot of people do it, but I just can't bring myself to enjoy those two mediums together. Maybe next year or 2 years from now, when I do another self-portrait, perhaps I will do that self-portrait in pastels. That could be another fun month-long streaming extravaganza. And then I'll have to do a self-portrait in markers in the future also. Maybe I can do that in place of Inktober one time. It'll be Inktober minus the prompts. It will just be Inktober marker self-portrait. Yeah, the background is very time consuming. I think that's why a lot of people kind of lose their patience with the background, because it's not necessarily a difficult thing to do, to just get these colors laid down and be done with it. It's, I've just went from here up to here so far with the same color. There's not a lot of skill involved in that, and it's relatively just like grinding away. Just, I gotta do it. The color's gotta be down. And what ends up happening is people rush this stage and they get sloppy, and that's how they mess up their backgrounds. And when you do that, as I've explained a few times since starting this portrait live stream, the background is just as important as the main subject, and you don't want people to focus on the background, and the only way to do that is to make no mistakes in it. Because if you make a mistake in the background, that's what draws people's attention to it. The background should be invisible. It should just be the stage in which the main subject is placed upon. Have I ever tried the blending powder? Yes. I actually have a few live streams, like 4 or 5 live streams, working with the powder blender and the all of the brush and pencil products. Since I've kind of split my time between soft pastels and colored pencils, I haven't really gotten into like the deeper techniques of what you can do with the brush and pencil products with colored pencils. But they're good products, and working on sanded paper, that's something that I would like to do more of, but getting sanded paper here in Poland it's not easy. I have to buy it in sheets from the UK, and it costs a lot just to have one piece shipped to me. And so it's not the most convenient way to get the paper, unfortunately. If I had better access to the sanded paper, I would probably use that a bit more often. Because from what I've used sanded paper, I really enjoyed it, and I like the final look, the full coverage look that you get on sanded paper. It almost turns your colored pencils into a somewhat oil pastel without the oil pastel part. It just has a really clean look to it when you use solvent to blend on sanded paper. It just looks really good, in my opinion. Do I like working on toned paper? I would say that I really, really like working on the Strathmore toned gray paper. That paper is for surely becoming one of my favorite papers to work on, and that's because of this project here that we've been doing over on Patreon. This picture of a ballerina. I just really like how the lighter colors can make the subject pop out, and I like that white has much more of a useful quality on the toned paper, and I really like the color of the gray. Yeah, I like the color and the value of the Strathmore toned gray paper. For the longest time, I used the toned tan paper, the Strathmore toned tan, and I really like that one also, especially if you're working with skin tones and stuff. But I had just kind of randomly, last time I was ordering art supplies or whatever, I was just getting a bunch of paper, and I saw a pack of that toned gray paper, and I was like, you know what? I never tried the toned gray. Let me just go ahead and grab some since I'm already buying art supplies, and I don't regret it. It's a really thick paper too, really thick, good quality paper, and it feels good. It feels like the kind of paper you want to work on, which I like a lot. I did do a little bit of sharpening of my color here. Unfortunately, my luminance pencils, they don't fit in my electric pencil sharpener. But they're easy to sharpen anyway, so it doesn't really matter all that much. I have tried the Mitenta Touch paper. The Mitenta Touch paper is no longer a viable option for me. And that was something that I actually recently discovered because there was a drawing journal not that long ago subtitled "Can It Be Fixed?" And it was regarding this pastel project that I had done a couple years ago over on Patreon. And I was never quite satisfied with the way that it had come out because it was like the first time trying a portrait with pastels. And I wanted to try to fix it, and I thought that I had done it on pastel mat. And I was working on it during the live stream, during the drawing journal. And I kept trying to fix it over and over again. And the pastel just kept coming off of the paper. Nothing would lay down on the paper, and I was like, what is going on? Because I had never had that issue with pastel mat before. And so about, I don't know, 40 minutes in, I think, I flipped the paper over and I realized, wait a minute, this isn't pastel mat, this is the Mitenta Touch paper. And I was like, that's why it's not working. Mitenta Touch paper is a far lower quality pastel paper than pastel mat. and so I probably won't ever use it for anything ever again because of that limitation that I came across. Something that I'd never considered. I didn't think that there was an issue with it. And the funny thing is, it explains why I don't like the project in the first place, because I couldn't get enough layers of pastel to make it look the way that I wanted. And as much as I wanted to try to fix it, it just wouldn't work. And so the Canson paper, to be honest with you, Canson as a brand in general, I have never liked. I don't like their watercolor paper. I don't like their colored pencil paper or their multimedia paper. I literally don't like any of their papers. I don't know if anybody else feels the same, but I think Canson is a no good brand. Based on my experience and all of the papers that I've tried, I think I will avoid that brand indefinitely. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody else's questions or whatnot. If you guys have any questions for me, I am happy to answer whatever questions you got for me. Just make sure you tag me in the chat so that I don't miss them. And if I happen to have missed one of your questions, don't hesitate to ask it again. Yeah, we have different preferences. I mean, I've said it probably 500,000 times, and I say it nearly twice a week, because I always get messages from people asking me like what paper I recommend, and my answer is always the same. The first thing I always do is I recommend like an in-between paper, like a novice level paper, something that doesn't cost a lot but also works well enough. And I always say to try out as many papers as you can, because paper is 100% a personal preference. There is no right choice. Unless you're working with pastels, then it's always pastel matte. But seriously, there is no right choice, and you're not wrong for liking a certain paper in any way. It's just 100% a personal preference. Some people like to use drafting paper, which I don't understand that for the life of me. But people like working on drafting paper, and I don't even like to touch drafting paper. I find it to be the most ridiculous paper. But people do love it, and they're not wrong for loving it. No more or less than I am wrong for despising it. How have I been? Well, I have been very good. Thank you for asking. Yes, very good indeed. Trying to think of anything new going on. Really not a whole lot. Life-wise, not a whole lot going on. My sister's getting ready to have her fourth child, and I'm gonna be leaving next month to go to the United States to be with my family during that time. And other than that, my wife and I, we've been trying to, trying to find a new place to live, something with a space that I can use for my studio space, so I can stop using our bedroom and I can have more room and just better productivity. That's pretty much it, though. Pretty much it. Now that looks 10 times better than when I started. You can see all of the colors that I'd previously laid down and used the solvent to blend with, they still show through a bit, but now the paper is completely covered on this side. And so it's definitely coming along. It's slow but correct. Vellum paper gives you the creeps. That's funny. Do I miss the States? Not really. I really don't. I was... Anytime my wife and I go for a nice leisurely walk, we always get to talking about stuff that we don't normally talk about. That's why I love taking walks, because it just kind of like it frees you from the normal everyday distractions and social media and internet and all of that stuff, and you just kind of open up about things that whatever pops into your mind. And I was talking to her about moving back to the United States, but the more that I think about it, like, I don't really want to. Like, there's nothing about the United States that I miss. The only thing that I miss is my family. And there's a lot of luxury, if I can use that word, of living in Poland, for me anyway. And I like the simplicity that I have here that I don't feel like I ever got in the United States, because here I don't need a car. I don't need like anything really. And for me to get my groceries, it's just, step outside, get on the bus, go down the road, walk in the grocery store, bring it back. I don't know, maybe it's just the car thing and the public transportation. I can get anywhere that I want. I don't have to worry about, car maintenance, insurance, getting pulled over because I always like to speed, car accidents, other people like hitting me or whatever. I mean, it's kind of just, it's just relaxing. It's just relaxing to be here. And I don't like the idea of giving that up, because I know that if we move back to the United States, I'm going to have to buy a car, which means I'm going to have to look for a car. I'm going to have to get car insurance again, which just creates one more like monthly payment thing that I hate. And to go anywhere, I have to drive myself. I guess I've just kind of gotten used to having a personal chauffeur as a bus driver. Just the buses here, they never really bother me. Every once in a while, you'll get a crazy on the bus, but it's rare, maybe like twice a year. I think the more common thing is the stinky people on the bus. You get quite often a lot of stinky people on the bus, but it's not that bad. Even that's relatively rare. So, but Yeah, the convenience of it is just, it's kind of overwhelming. Even when I lived in Seattle, we had buses there, but gosh, the buses are never on time for anything in Seattle, and probably not on time anywhere in the United States because public transportation is only in larger cities that have a lot of people, and because they're larger cities with a lot of people, there's sporadic traffic constantly. And so the buses, it's impossible for them to be reliable. But here, there's a lot of people, but everybody's spread out really far. So uh, traffic is traffic is super minimal. It barely exists in the context of the traffic that I was used to. And so the buses are extremely reliable, just insanely reliable. I would now every now and again, the buses are a few minutes late or whatnot, but a majority of the time they're not. They're much more on time than they're late. Sometimes they're even early. But yeah, so we kind of got talking about that on one of our walks, and I was like, I don't necessarily like the idea of moving back to the United States, but you know, uh, we want to buy a house, and I want to own property, uh, and doing it here just it doesn't seem possible right now, which is very frustrating. So yeah, I'm glad that you understand what I mean. I don't know. I think what I may end up doing is buying property in the United States to rent out, and then as my income, as I start making more and more money, then I can have a bit of an upper hand to living in Poland with a bit more luxury. Uh, possibly getting a car here in the long term, and then buying property here also. I just think it will be easier if I have property in the United States. Wow, I've been away for quite a while, and you have short hair and a beard. Yeah, I imagine if you've been gone for some time and then you show up and I look like this, it's probably a little confusing. I can assure you, I didn't sell my channel to a younger bearded gentleman with a very similar voice. Being a landlord kind of sucks sometimes. Some people don't respect other people's property. Oh yeah, absolutely. I look. I totally understand. Um, which is why I don't intend to be the landlord. Um, what I would do is I would buy the property and I'd have my sister manage it. So my sister would be a landlord because obviously I wouldn't be able to manage property halfway around the world. I don't want to be a landlord either. I don't like people. So I'll pawn that work off onto my sister. Now, of course, I'll make less money that way, but at least both of us will be able to make money. Have I thought about the tiny house movement? Well, the thing about the tiny house, I love the tiny house stuff, but the thing about the tiny house is that I need a studio space. So it's either what, get a tiny house and then go rent out a studio space, or build two tiny houses, which would be the same price as just a normal house that would let me have one room to set up a studio. No, I understand. I've watched a lot of the tiny house uh, YouTube videos and stuff because I love it. It's fantastic. And it would totally be for me if there was an additional studio space attached to the tiny house. Tiny house plus studio space, I'd be all for it. I don't need a lot of room. I don't collect stuff. I don't collect anything at all. I have no collections except for art supplies. I just need space for my art supplies and a space for me to use them. That's all I'm looking for. My sister is basically a tiny houser. I mean, tiny houser on wheels. Her and her husband sold their house and now they live in an RV that is not big at all. It's just, it's just a normal size RV. Nothing super fancy about it or anything. And they just travel around the United States. They're in Texas right now um, for work. They both work for this same company that like goes around and sets up new businesses. So they like do like not necessarily construction, but like I don't know what you would call it. I don't know. They set up like the aisles and stuff that you see in stores. I'm sure there's a technical name for that type of work, but I can't remember what it's called. Sometimes, uh, sometimes I think about just moving back, buying an RV, and just slumming it like slumming it with my sister and brother-in-law. I love those two. I love hanging out with them. Usually, I'm usually always with them when I go home. Always hanging out with Tom and Cece. Oh yeah, I've seen a few of those shipping container conversions. They don't seem as easy as they make it look on YouTube. There's apparently like a whole bunch of restrictions and like certain designs that you have to do. Probably have to, even though it's, you know, supposed to be like a do-it-yourself kind of thing, you probably still have to hire an architect to design like the intricacies of everything to make sure that it follows code. Gosh, there's so many different codes and stuff to houses. It makes me hesitant to ever want to own one. How many siblings do I have? Well, I have two full-blooded siblings. My sister Lisa and Cece. We both have the same mom and dad. And then I have a brother, Ryan. That's my half brother. And then I have two other brothers, David and Ernie. So yeah, five. I don't really. I'm friends with my older brothers, David and Ernie, but we've never had much of a relationship. We did a little bit when I was younger, but I don't know what really happened there. But I'm really close with my brother Ryan. I almost always stay at his house when I go visit. A really crazy story. I didn't even know I had a brother Ryan, and I was still in college in Washington, and I was I think I was still doing my associate's degree, and I worked at the hospital. But one day, I get a message on Facebook from this guy Ryan, and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm your brother," and I'm like, "Pretty sure you're not." And he sends me pictures of me as a kid, and turns out we were actually in the same foster home together, and well, my dad, he got me back from foster care, but Ryan wasn't his son, so Ryan ended up staying there, and he was raised by our foster parents, who are Amish. I almost was Amish. I was almost Amish. I was even speaking Dutch as a toddler. I don't remember any Dutch though. But my brother Ryan, he speaks Dutch, and he's also half Korean. So I have a half Korean brother that is Amish, and speaks fluent Dutch. And I tell you what, if you're familiar with the Amish, then you know that they have a particular accent in English. They have a particular English accent, and they also have a very particular walk. You know when somebody is Amish, even when they don't look Amish, and it's funny that my brother has that. I hope he doesn't watch this live stream, but yeah, I love him to death. He's a great guy, and look forward to seeing him and his little son Wyatt when I come visit. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever talked much about my brother Ryan. Well, no, I have for sure mentioned him, but yeah, don't know if I went into that much detail. Do I mix pencil brands and types? Yes, I absolutely do. I have, in fact, on the background here, I've used the Luminance, Prismacolor, and Polychromos all together. Oh, thank you, Lily. Yeah, growing up, my family always felt kind of distant and a little shattered amongst ourselves. But goodness, after I left for the military and I was in college and I graduated and stuff, and I came back from Washington and visited my family and stuff. I feel like we were pretty distant from each other when we were growing up as kids. My sister Lisa, she was always off somewhere. Cece, she was off somewhere else, and I was usually stuck at home by myself. But we've really come full circle as adults, and we are closer than ever. And my brother Ryan included, and I just absolutely adore my family. When I was in the military and I was away, I never really got homesick. I never really like felt like I missed my family. And in fact, in the 10 years that I was living in Washington, I only visited like once every 2 years. I barely visited. Uh, and even when I did visit, it was like two it was just like 2 weeks, and that was it. But now it's like completely different. I get homesick all the time, and I have to visit my family at least twice a year, or I just get super depressed and I stop working. And when I go and visit my family, it's just like the greatest feeling in the world. But it's funny how different it is now. Now that I've gotten older, how much closer I feel to my family. I just love them to death. Alrighty, now, so I'm gonna blend with some solvent here, and you'll notice I have a little tissue. I dipped my brush, got rid of all the excess, and then I even wiped it off because I don't want my brush to actually be wet with solvent. I want it to be like dry, but still have like a bit of the solvent, and that's about it. Because otherwise I will just wipe the pencil right off the paper. And this should smooth out any of the imperfections of the pencil and reveal any spots that might need maybe a little touch of another layer of the pencil. But I'm guessing that I probably won't need another touch up to cover the paper. I feel pretty confident that this is going to be enough, and I can just move on to the color toning. And since my brush is dry, it takes a little bit longer to start moving the pigment. So you'll notice I'll just kind of stay in one spot for a little extra time and really work those pencil pigments down into all of the small crevices of the paper. and it will become much, much smoother. Yeah, I agree. It probably is, just getting closer with my family as a part of getting older. You just you realize you start to realize what's more important. At least a lot of us do, I think. I didn't spend much of my youth thinking about the impermanence of my family, but now I've certainly learned to appreciate their presence in my life, and so I try to make sure I get plenty of it. It's nice that I've gotten to a stage in my artistic career that I've I've been able to afford, making 2 trips back to the States to visit. It's not only about, paying for the trip, but it's also about taking the time away from working that I have to take into consideration. But fortunately, have all of you lovely people that support me and let me see my family as often as I can, while still being able to take time away from my YouTube channel and my Patreon and stuff. Very, very grateful for all of you as well. Oh well, Lily. Tell your daughter I said happy birthday. 38, huh? I still sometimes, when I wake up in the morning and wash my face and see myself in the mirror, it's funny to to think about how old I am, because I don't feel like I am. I have a hard time even comprehending that it's been 30 years, because I still feel like I'm ready to go outside and play hide and go seek with all of my friends in the neighborhood. And I would still do it if, I wouldn't be labeled a child predator or something. But yeah, those were fun times. Those were fun times. We used to, my sisters and our friends, we'd go on these insane 30-mile bike rides in the middle of summer, up and down these what seemed like endless hills. And we'd go to this place that we called the Water Hole, and it was this old strip mine in the middle of the woods. And it was a good 15 miles to one way. It was 15 miles one way. I was 10, maybe 9 or 10. I was only 9 or 10 years old. So my sister Lisa, she would have been 11, 12-ish. Cece would have been around 14. And we would just make these epic bike rides. We always referred to it as going on an adventure. We'd never call them bike rides. We'd call them adventures. We would say, "Oh, let's go on an adventure this Wednesday or whatever," and we all knew what it meant. We would just get on our bikes and we would just ride and ride and ride and ride and ride. And we get out to this strip mine that had super clear water, but it had that kind of like that greenish tint. I don't know why it had a greenish tint, but it was just refreshing, and we would just swim there all day, and then we'd make that epic 15-mile bike ride back home. And we would do that day after day after day after day. So much bike riding. My dad was always a really hard worker, and so he was not around much. He was mostly just trying to make the money to pay the bills and feed 3 very hungry kids. And he definitely, yeah, I never showed him the appreciation the way that I wish I had when I was a kid, because now as an adult I can fully grasp the level of sacrifice that he would make every day. I mean, as far back as I remember, he'd never call off work. Never, not one time, until I would have been like 9. I was 9, and my dad caught a really, really bad case of pneumonia, and he was like literally dying. And he spent like 3 weeks in the hospital. That was the only time he missed work in like 30 years or something ridiculous. And he's been working since he was like 11 years old. He's finally retired now, and I couldn't be happier for him. It took him way too long to retire though. He's so used to working, he didn't know what to do with himself if he wasn't working, but it seems like he finally found some things to occupy his time, just loving on his grandkids. Yeah, I agree, Sally. Yeah, kids, they don't have the perspective, and there's no way to teach that perspective without experience. You can't have perspective without experience. Yeah, I agree, Lily. Yeah, my dad is one of the good ones for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, he definitely has his faults, but he put the work in, and there's no denying that. You know, there's always been like this innate calling, almost subconsciously, my entire life to always make sure that that I make my dad proud. Like almost in a way that I always knew, even as a kid, that what he was doing, like on a subconscious level, I must have known because I always wanted I always wanted his work to pay off. So, in order for that to his work to be paid off, I have to I have to put in my work to make sure that he's proud. That's where that's where my core inspiration comes from, I think. I like today's conversation about family. I like seeing all your guys' positive positive feedback on family and stuff. Now that this side has dried from the solvent, it looks 1,000 times better. Look how solid that color is. No more paper showing through. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Debbie, I was the youngest also. That was up until I found my brother Ryan. Turns out he's a little younger than I am, so. But I grew up thinking I was the youngest, and I certainly avoided a lot of the pitfalls that my sisters went through. Although Lisa, my sister Lisa, I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she did it, but she just kind of like found the middle ground, like, and just went right for the win. She just went right for the win, and you know, despite despite getting pregnant as a teenager, I mean, she just beat us all at life. She just beat us all. She's always been real independent as well. My sister Cece and I, we're like inseparable best friends. We love to do everything together: snowboard, video games, freaking you name it. And and we've always been like that. We've always been like the best of friends. I think I the relationship I have with my sister Cece is the kind of best friend relationship that you'd ever want in your life. Like I hope everybody gets to experience that best friend relationship that my sister and I have. Um, but the relationship I have with my sister Lisa is different. It's not the best friend relationship, but it's a 100% just loving brother and sister relationship. Like we don't do the things that Cece and I do together, but we can certainly talk to one another in a way that I can't do with anybody else. Yeah, that would be tough, Heidi. No doubt. No doubt that would be tough. Even this side is looking much better now. Almost done blending it. How long has it been? Oh gosh, the first hour of the live stream, my goodness, it just goes by so quickly. Just goes by so quickly. I wanna do some toning of my background before I go, so I'll still be on for some time. But real quick, don't forget to give the live stream a thumbs up for me, and also, if you're looking to help support the channel, I do have some merchandise in the description. So if you want to buy yourself a shirt or a sticker or a coffee mug or something like that, I would appreciate it. All right, so let's do a little bit of toning. I think I'll just start on this side, the safe side. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen this pencil. So give me a second. There we go. All right, so for the toning, I'm just going to very lightly let this color build up. I think I'll do like medium smallish circles, and I kind of want this color to build up more along the edge, almost like creating like a vignette, focusing around the edge and the corner up here. And I'm going to use a very light pressure because I want to avoid making creating any texture like from the pencil grain, and I certainly want to avoid all lines. Don't want to make any obvious lines. And slowly but surely this color will start to darken the corner and turn it a little bit more reddish. So for blending, I use a number 8 round brush, and I use, let me just put the lid on it, I use Zest It zest its solvent. Yes. Now, and unironically ask which solvent I use. So far, I haven't missed a day. Every single day that I've been asked that. But I'm more than happy to answer the question. Halina, your last name is probably one of the more interesting Polish last names that I've come across. Krawczykiewicz. Now, I haven't seen that long of a Polish last name before. Pardon my poor pronunciation. Nie ma za co. Yep, you definitely gotta stay patient with the artwork, Renata. It pays off in the end. That is for sure. Just learning English? Well, you seem to be doing quite well. Hopefully you can understand my English well. I get a lot of compliments from people that speak English as a second language. They often say that they can understand me very well, and I'm glad. I want everybody to be able to understand me well. I don't talk fast. I don't like talking fast, so that's probably one thing. I'm a slower talker than a lot of people. I don't feel the need to rush my words. I also tend to choose my words carefully also. I guess all of those years I've been told to think before you speak have finally paid off, because in most cases, I always think of what I'm going to say before I say it. I'm not even sure if I could have a conversation or say anything really without having to first think about what I'm going to say. Almost the exact words, to be honest with you. I'm quite neurotic, actually, so I think these things a lot. Sometimes I wish I could shut it off, but I can't really. Did I blend the yellowish to transition right around the right ear? I don't have a yellowish color actually. The closest to yellow I have is the Luminance 872. It's more of an orange peach, but it could just be the light reflecting it. There's no yellowish there or anything. No yellow colors at all. No. Here are my colors. So this is all of the colors that I've used on the background. I have two like pinky colors. One's a little bit darker. I have two purplish colors, and again, one's a little bit darker. And then I have my transitionary color, which is just a warm gray. And then I have this bright red for the line. And then I have two toning colors for the darker side, which is this blue and green. But looking at it with all the colors surrounding it, it does have a yellowish look to it. So yeah, I could definitely see thinking that I had applied a yellow color, but that's not the case. Having the gray and the blue and then this red on both sides of this like peachy color, plus the paper kind of brightening it up a little bit, it does give it a bit of a yellow look to it. I like a slower talker because English is also not my first language and I need to follow. I'm glad you're learning something, and I'm glad you like the sound of my voice. You know, it's funny. I would have never considered anybody liking the sound of my voice. I would have never imagined, really, never would have imagined. But since I became a YouTuber, I get quite a bit of compliments on it. I really do, and it never ceases to surprise me, really. All right, now I need to add a little bit of purple. So I'm gonna just bring in some purple. But I do appreciate the compliment. I'm glad that you enjoy listening to me talk. I really enjoy talking to you guys. I really do. I don't take what I do for granted, not even for a second. I haven't said it in a while, but I really do have the best subscribers on YouTube. I tell you what, after I've been streaming for 2 years, I've never had a moderator in my chat, not one time. There was one person in the past 2 years that I've had to remove what they said in the chat, and that was just because I think they were just like spamming or something like that. I don't know. It was like one random person one time. And I don't even remember what they said. It was Probably just something completely irrelevant and stupid or something. But clearly like a spammer. And that's it. Other than that, I have the greatest people because they just hang out in the chat, get to know one another. I mean, I know a number of you are even friends amongst each other because, you know, you go over to find each other on Facebook and then you just get to know one another. I mean, Chrissy and Wendy, for instance, they're like sisters at this point. And they met on my channel. I'm going to bring in a little bit of gray. Tone down the orange a little bit. Now at this stage, like I've already burnished the paper and I'm not like re-burnishing it in any way. In fact, I'm actually using less pressure now than I was previously, and that is because I'm just toning it. So I'm slowly like altering the color. And you can do this. I will do a lot of this on the skin for those fine tuning of the skin tones and stuff like that. And it's a really, really important skill to understand this toning stage. And it's just kind of like glossing over, or what's the word I'm looking for? Glazing. Yeah, it's kind of like glazing with paint. You know, you thin your paint down so that it's real translucent, and that's essentially the same thing that I'm doing here. I'm just using a really, really light touch and letting the color build up slowly over top of my burnished layer. Because it doesn't take any pressure at all to make the change that you want. And you can grab, and you'll see this when I do the skin tones. I'll grab colors that are far more vibrant than what I actually want to show up. But because I use a really, really light touch, I just use it as a toning color. I'm glad to hear that, Lily. Yeah, I've made 1,000 new friends through my YouTube channel. You know, I get to talk to people from every corner of the world, and it's just it's really great. You know, it gives me a whole new perspective. Yeah, I've friends all over the planet. And it feels good. Feels really good. Do I sometimes use toned paper? Yes, I do sometimes use toned paper, but not colored. Like I'm using gray paper, and I've used tan paper, and I like those papers. That was actually a question earlier in the stream, and I do really like the toned paper. Anything non-white really is fun to work on. think I need more water. Yeah. I'm all out of water. Might have to finish up the toning tomorrow. All this talking and no water is not good. My lips are getting real dry. Alright, let's bring in some blue. And jump over to this side. Just kind of skip a bit. I still need to bring in a little bit of purple here, but I want to bring in some blue first. Hour and a half. I think this might be the longest stream yet for the month. I will probably stream in the morning tomorrow, my morning. Probably, I don't know, maybe around 9 or 10. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll make it 10. I don't know. 10 sounds good. I'll probably stream for several hours. 2 or 3, at least. My wife has to go back to work tomorrow, so I'll have the whole day to stream. So I'll just jump on and see where it takes me. I'll probably be able to finish the background tomorrow, though. So I'll probably just spend tomorrow finishing up the background, and that'll be day 6. So yeah, today's day 5. So day 6, 6 days to do the background. That's not too bad. And then I have the rest of the month to finish the more complicated part of the drawing. Sounds about right. I'll probably do some more toning tomorrow, and then of course I'll smooth it out again with my solvent, and that should make it done. I'm gonna bring in some more green. Some green down here at the bottom, kind of probably come up around here. And so this will be my last color. So 2 or 3 minutes left maybe. So if you have any final questions or comments or anything, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and then I'm going to call it a night. So you know why I'm not here tomorrow, and both Tuesday and Wednesday I'll be going to watch the Endgame. Oh, awesome. Enjoy the movie. It's very fun. Very, very fun movie. I really enjoyed Endgame a lot. Take a snack. It's like 3 hours long. Though it goes super quick. It goes super quick. Endgame could have been 6 hours long, and I would have still been like, oh man, it's over. One of these days, I wish like a 6 hour long movie would be released. I suppose I could just like edit the Hobbit trilogy all into like one long epic movie. Cut out the slow parts, the unnecessary parts. Do the same with like Lord of the Rings. Although, um, you know, I know there's a lot of like people that aren't necessarily fans of the Hobbit trilogy, but they love the Lord of the Rings. And I'm actually the opposite. You know, I liked Lord of the Rings, but I always find myself enjoying the Hobbit series more. I don't know what it is about it. I just kind of I just felt like it was like more real, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just the updated graphics or whatnot. Alright, I don't know why I'm blending out with the brush. That's going to be it for today. So thank you guys so much for coming by, hanging out. I really enjoyed the conversation today, talking about family and all of that. So yeah, you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Take care. Peace.